Good evening and welcome to the FITT Show, financial information for today and tomorrow. I'm Bobby P. Kinzer.
And I'm Thomas Doty.
And we are the FITT Show, helping our people get their finances in shape. Hope everybody's having a wonderful week. This is our 159th show, so we'd like to thank everybody who's been going on this ride with us. And what we try to do is provide you with information that you can use, news that you can use in your everyday real life when it comes to maximizing your wealth, and especially helping you with generational wealth. Because what's the sense in accumulating all if you don't have nobody to share it with? So
Yeah,
we
hey
like to.
Bob, on that note, I just saw some statistics. On average, the average black family just transfers $0 at death.
Zero?
And zero. The
Actually,
average is zero.
oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So this show is even more important
Yeah,
than I imagined.
yeah. So
It's
you
something.
you sad because the person died, and you sad because they ain't leave you nothing.
Yeah, that's a true statement. So hopefully, by watching our show, you won't be one of those individuals in that position because we're trying to provide you with as much information as we can. And we just want to remind you that we're not registered financial advisors. We're just financial education instructors. You know, we don't push products. We share certain products and stuff when we talk about the stock market update, but we're just using those to use as a benchmark. We're not promoting any kind of products. We don't get any money for that. We're not trying to do this for money. We're just trying to help our folks increase their bottom line and live a more, easier life. Because one thing for sure, if you don't have money, it's kind of hard to live an easy life. So how you doing today?
Struggling, my brother. I'm at my mother's house. I think I told you guys my mother's 104, and that's a blessing. But there's some things to go along with being 104 that I'm dealing
Yes,
with.
it is.
So
We should be only so fortunate to make it to 104.
maybe,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So little administrative things. We like for you to click on the like button and the heart button as much as you can because it helps us reach more people. That's how it works here on Facebook, at least. And make sure you go out there and subscribe on YouTube. Another thing, we like to make this interactive, so there's many comments that you could put in the box, and actually that exponentially increases our audience by putting stuff in the comment box, but it also helps us to make this an interactive show. We're in a virtual studio, but we can interact with you if you use the comment box. Got questions, thoughts, opinions, or ideas? Please, feel free to use the comment box because we like that we love those kind of things. Don't Last week we talked about 11 wealth building tools, but this week we're going to talk about ways to get a 10% ROI. That's return on investment, and we're going to talk a little bit about return on investments, y'all, because that is a very important measurement as far as when it comes to building wealth. But before we get into that, we're going to jump right into this our top of the show, major topic everybody loves, though, that we start off with this is what's going on in the stock market. And I'm hoping you got some good news to tell us this week.
Man, this is the worst news we've had in several years.
Oh no, say it ain't so.
It's been an apocalypse for the tech stocks. They have been taking it on the chin.
Say it ain't
And
so.
there's a couple of reasons for that. There's thinking that the AI boom could be overdone at this point, and the first two of the so-called Magnificent Seven, the big seven tech stocks, announced earnings this week. That would be Tesla and Google. Tesla grossly underperformed. They had lower revenue. And it's funny, Google actually beat their estimate, but the street reacted to the fact that YouTube revenue was down. But I kind of think everybody's just kind of looking for bad news right now. So the rest of the Magnificent Seven are going to announce earnings within the next couple of weeks. So hopefully the worm will turn. But as you can see, for the last week, the S&P is down almost 3%. The Nasdaq is down 4%, 3.9, 690 points. Microsoft down a little bit higher, a little bit more than the total Nasdaq. It's down 5% or 22 points. Tesla is down 29. It actually went up a little bit more today, but they had a terrible day yesterday. It went down 12% after they announced earnings. Pfizer's kind of hanging in there, didn't really change. Nvidia went down with the rest of the market. It's down 9 points. And Google, as I mentioned, their numbers beat estimates, but there was some concern about their YouTube revenue being a little bit low, YouTube advertising revenue. So we get some news tomorrow. The inflation numbers come out, and we'll see how the Fed reacts to that. The GDP came out today, and it was a little higher than normal, which should be good news. And the hope is that this so-called soft landing is going to be once the inflation numbers come out, if they are going in the right direction, we may be able to pull off this soft landing without having gone into a recession, and things should be okay if the earnings are up. The other thing that's pushing the market is that supposedly there's a lot of money moving out of the tech stocks and into small cap stocks, which nobody really understands why, but I think they're thinking they can do better with lower interest rates, and everybody's pretty much factored in the fact that the Fed is going to lower interest rates at least once this year. So it's time to hold tight. As we always say, don't panic. This is nothing unusual. In the tech stocks, they are volatile. You're expecting a high return, so you have to absorb some risk. So we'll see how things go. And as bad as things have been this week, if you look back at the past performance of the so-called the stocks that I have, Google, I think I got into Microsoft at like 240. I got into Tesla at about 180. So Tesla hasn't done that well. I got into Apple about 160. Pfizer's my only loser. I got into Pfizer at about 38, maybe even a little higher than that. Nvidia, I got in at 17, so I will never complain about that one. And Google, I got in at a very low price. I think it was like 117. So yeah, it's had a tough week, but overall these stocks have performed really, really well, and I expect them to continue to perform well in the future. So I wish I had better news, but that's where we're at.
Hey, Doe, so when you talk about the Magnificent Seven, let's see how good you are. You know what they are?
Yeah, let's try it. I think the only two I don't have is Meta and Facebook. Then you got
Okay.
Microsoft,
That Meta
Tesla.
is Facebook, right?
Oh yeah, Meta. That's one.
Okay, good.
Microsoft's 2, Tesla's 3, Apple's 4, Nvidia's 5, Google's 6, and I'm missing one. I am
You
missing.
you doing pretty good.
Yeah, I'm missing one. I can't think of the one I'm
You
missing.
sure?
Meta. Yeah, Meta
Yeah.
and what's the
Good.
other one?
Did you say Amazon?
Amazon. That's the one I'm missing. Yeah, and I do own Amazon too. But
That's
yeah,
good.
Amazon. That's
So
it.
so
That's
how
the
many
Magnificent Seven.
and how many of those you were? One, two,
I got all but Meta.
three. Oh,
I
all
just
but
didn't list
Facebook.
Amazon here, but
That's what
I
you
own
said.
Amazon too.
All but Facebook. Oh, that's interesting, dope. That's
Yeah.
pretty good. But that's what they call the Magnificent Seven, y'all. It used to be called the FANG. Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Nvidia, and Google. It's called FANG, but they added two more, and now those are starting. And I'm reading this book called The uh, Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel,
Hmm.
and it's interesting. It's so good. You all need to really pick that
What's
book.
it about?
It's about the psychology of money. It's about just understanding investment, understanding how trying to determine money and investments is not a complete science. It's not like physics or engineering. You can they're sort of straightforward, but they said some of the best fund managers, some of the best financial advisors, can't determine actually to the point of what money would do. And it was just talking
Oh, for
about,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, and it was said it's, but so it was talking about, it's good and bad. And it's just talked about how, but it was so interesting. But y'all really need to get that book and read it because it talked about dope, how, believe it or not, only certain institutions, certain financial institutions, I mean, certain companies drive the market at any one particular time. I thought it was like, maybe 50%, but actually, it's no, so in any given time, it could be just like right now, what's driving the market is really this Magnificent Seven, and actually three of the Magnificent Seven. But out of all the stocks, that's really interesting. And it talked about investing and said, if you can't predict it. And Warren Buffett talked about the guy at what's the guy Zuckerberg?
Yeah,
They
Zuckerberg.
That's Facebook,
Yeah, Meta.
and and Yahoo offered him, I think in 2003, $1 billion for Facebook, and he just held. Not that he had any, great, aspect, but he's like, no, I'm just going to hold. And look at it now. So it's something up to around like $40 billion or something. But it wasn't like he was some major guru and knew that it was going to grow. Warren Buffett, though, for instance, he's at 48 billion, and he made majority of all that after 65. Up to
Yeah.
age 65, he just only made 3 billion. And it's not like he's picked some good companies, but it's only like a certain amount of companies really driving Berkshire halfway. What is it?
Yeah.
What is it?
And
Yeah,
Bob, and just in general, and I don't want to oversimplify it. I mean, I had a lot of things go positive in my life that allowed me to generate some wealth. But if if I don't want to say it's pretty simple, but if you start when you're young, you put money away, you make good choices where it goes, you're going to generate some wealth. I mean, it's almost guaranteed. You almost have to try not to, because the market goes up way more often than it goes down. And it's just a matter of starting young, maximizing as much as you can save, and being invested in the market. And of course, there's other things like not having a lot of debt and things of that sort. And real estate obviously helps. I mean, I bought and sold 9 houses, and I made money on, I think, all of them. And one of them I broke even, so I made money on 8 and broke even on 1. But again, all those things add to your wealth. But the biggest thing I did was start saving early and invested, and money, it grows. It's You don't want to ever say guaranteed because nothing's guaranteed. But if you
right.
look at what the market's done in the past, it's gone up way more often than it's going down.
And what I want to add to that is being consistent too, consistently in the market. And another thing I saw though was diversification. Just like with you, but I mean, you actually have some winners because you got some of the most of the Magnificent Seven. But I'm sure you have other stocks too, like Pfizer and things like that. But most people's portfolios are driven. I mean, where you get those outstanding returns. I'm talking about like 200%, 300%. Those are like outliers, right? But they
For
carry your
sure.
portfolio. But they carry your portfolio, and that's why it's important. It's not like everybody picks the right, 100% portfolio of stocks that are really rolling. It don't work that way. And he showed this other one though. Now I'll get off of this. He said, there's if no one knows what a stock is really going to do. He says it's a lot of times by chance. You use all the measurements and matrix you can about a company, but you really a lot of times it's just luck and good fortune. But he said, but there's an 80% chance that your stock will grow and appreciate. But if you don't get into it and take the chance, it's the old saying, if you don't get in the game, how can you even have a chance? But even though it may lose out, it's saying there's an 80% chance that that stock will do well over time. I thought that was interesting. So anyway, the Psychology of Money, you all, it's an easy book to read. It's not no book for no great, you know, finance majors or people with PhDs in math. It's a great book, easy to read, and it puts a lot of sense into understanding the money and investing. So, dope. Normally, when the stock market. Oh, by the way, though, I want to let you know about gold. Gold is down considerably, and
I
that's interesting.
didn't even check that today.
That's interesting because usually it's a inverse relationship to the market, but the gold I had dropped below $2,400. Remember, it was heading towards $2,500 an
Right.
ounce. It dropped down to $2,300 an ounce right now. So it's interesting about markets. But I hope people that follow us and see this every week and that y'all getting the idea because now you see it in real time because you look at it every week and most people don't, and you can just see how the market would be moving, the ebbs and flows. I think this is so great though. But normally when the market goes down, cryptocurrency go up, and actually cryptocurrency did go up a bit. Don't understand that correlation though, but the actual overall market cap for cryptocurrency is down by $11 billion, but that's less than 1%. But Bitcoin is now back up to $65,789 a Bitcoin, and that's up 3%. It's up $1,798 uh, week over week growth. And that's pretty interesting looking at these correlations between the market and cryptocurrency. Now, Ethereum is down by $258 at 3,173. That's the smart contracts. That's down 8%. So I don't know why that is down. Tether, which is tied, one of the few cryptocurrencies that's tied to a currency, which is actually tied to the dollar, that stayed at 99 cents. But Solana is up by $11. Excuse me, by $11, up 7%, up to $171. And I don't understand about the Dogecoin because now it moved from the number 10 spot to the number 9 spot, but it only went up a penny. But that's about 8%. It's up to 13 cents. But what I think is happening is not that it's moving up. I think other ones are dropping out.
There's a
So
bunch of them out there, that's for sure.
yeah, man. One time I saw it was like it's something like 40,000 cryptocurrency, but only about 8 or 9,000 of them are active. So be careful out there. Know what you're into. And like we always say, don't just have an entry strategy. Have an exit strategy. And remember, this is highly, highly speculative. So, let's get into our subject for today, man. Let's get into um, ways to make a 10% return on investment. Now, that sounds, well, I don't know if people understand, but getting a 10% return is actually a great return because most people are thinking like, you know, 30, 50%, no, that's not realistic, as far as especially with risk goes. But a 10% return, if you can get that, remember what we always peg, whether a return is good or not, you usually peg it to the return that you get on a savings account. And if that's less than 1%, anything you're doing above that is really, really good. So a 10% return is really good. But what do we mean by that, though? Ways to make a 10%, and then especially return on investment. Because I know y'all heard of ROI before.
Yeah, well, let's get into it, Bob. And before we start talking about making a 10% return, the first thing you have to understand is what is ROI? How do you calculate ROI? What's the measurement? And that's another one of the things you need to educate yourself about. Because when we talk about managing your money, one of the things we always say is you have to review and adjust, but you have to understand how your money's doing. You have to understand how to measure is what you're doing generate the types of return that it should be returning. A lot of times you compare it to what the overall market does, but the overall market assumes you're 100%. But we'll show that in a minute, not right now.
Okay.
But
Okay.
the overall market, that's assuming you're 100% invested in stocks, and most people aren't. And we usually use somewhere between 9 and 10% to say what the market has done over time. And so when we talk about a 10% ROI, that is a decent return, a very good return, as Bob said, and it's hard to get, but you got to understand how to get to it. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but you get that by obviously making the right investment choices to get that type of return. There's so many factors involved in it, how diversified you are, the risks, what the market's doing, and navigating all those different kinds of things takes a lot of effort, a lot of thought. And it's another one of those situations where you may need professional help, but if you don't, you got to do the groundwork yourself of first understanding how you calculate ROI, where to put your money, how to invest, and all the other variables that affect the market.
So, Dope, determining what constitutes a good ROI, return on investment, is crucial for investors seeking to maximize their returns while managing the risks. We always talk about that risk tolerance, understand how to manage your risk. But while there's no universal benchmark, there's several factors that influence what's considered satisfactory, like risk tolerance, we always talk about investment duration, industry norms such as market conditions, and personal goals. Basically, return on investment tells you how much money you've made or lost on an investment or project after accounting for its cost. So let's get into it, though. What is
Yeah,
ROI?
let's work on an example just so we can make sure we understand how you calculate ROI. And let's take a pretty simple example. Let's say you invest $1,500. You can show the chart now, Bob. Let's
Yeah,
say
for some reason, hold on, lost it. Okay,
let's say
got it.
you invest $1,500 into a stock, okay, or any investment. You invest $1,500, okay, and it grows to be worth 1,650. So that $1,500 investment grew to 1,650. So the way you calculate it is you take what it's worth today, 1,650, minus your initial investment, 1,500, and divide that by your initial investment. In this case, it comes out to 10%. And so you have to track that to see if you're hitting your expected returns, or if you are investing, even if you have an advisor, you want to make sure you understand what your ROI is and if you're making the required uh, gains that you expect to make. And so you have to understand how it's calculated. You have to understand how to keep track of it and make sure you're making what you expect to make.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward, though. That's pretty straightforward. So does it did that is that your explanation totally of the ROI? Yeah, okay, got you. All right, so let's talk about um, the potential, investments that can potentially return 10% or more. Like Modestine, she just wrote in the comment box, she said, I'd love to get a 10% return. And this things out there that you can get it. But, investing money wisely is a skill set that isn't just reserved for the big time Wall Street brokers and the tycoons. With the right knowledge and strategy or guidance of a skilled advisor, financial advisor, that really helps too. But anyone can make strides to unlock their wealth potential and aim for like a 10% return on their investment. Now, various investment options might yield 10% return, but nevertheless, it's important to proceed always with caution because there's no guarantees. And because the old saying, past returns are not indicative of future results. That's the stockbrokers out. Always a past returns are no indicator of future performance. But it sometimes helps. Now, stocks, are a popular choice for many investors. Like we talked about the Magnificent Seven. Stocks such as Apple has returned more than 898% over the past 10 years. And even if it is a bit of like a unicorn stock, right? But investment decisions like this should be based on one's risk tolerance. Always, we talk about that because there's so many products out there. Like we talked about cryptocurrency, but it depends on your risk tolerance. There's a product out there for anybody seeking 50, 60, 70% return. But is the risk tolerance aligned with what your risk taking should be? Now, consider all factors. Now, we're going to talk about a few investments that, cumulatively, they can return 10% or more.
Yeah, and we're going to start with growth stocks, and the Magnificent Seven fit that description perfectly. Now, the one thing I failed to mention when we talk about that ROI investment, it and I use the example of stock, but if it has a dividend, you have to take that into account too. And so just be aware of that. But growth stocks, those are companies that are expected to grow at an above average rate. Okay. And you think tech stocks, you think biotech stocks, those kind of stocks that you expect very, very fast growth, and or like biotechnology and technology, the two biggest that I can think of. And picking the right one obviously is very important. And we when we think of tech stocks, we think of the Amazons, the Apple, the Magnificent Seven, and I can't rattle off any biotech stocks. I haven't really invested in those. Some of the pharmaceuticals are growth stocks, especially if they hit. You look at the ones that's selling the Ozempic and the Wegovy and all those. I'm sure those are definitely considered growth stocks. And that's one way to get 10%. And the key is picking the right one at the right time. And it's not as easy as it sounds, especially now when you look at how much the Magnificent Seven has grown. You have to ask yourself, is there that much more room to grow? And a lot of times you can find growth stocks just by looking around, and if you can catch the next big thing before it hits the market, uh, then you can actually do your own research and find a growth stock to help you get that elusive 10%.
And then there's growth stocks, and then there's aggressive growth stocks. And biotech stocks are aggressive growth. So, dope. I had a biotech stock, right, for about, man, maybe 8, 9, 10 years. I was holding it. And what it was a oral insulin. So you didn't have to shoot it up with a needle. And I'm like, and it's out of Canada. No one else has one. No one else has one. And I'm like, oh, this has got to be. I know people going to rather take it by their mouth than take it with a needle. And the thing about biotech stocks, there's 3-stage clinical stages. And once it gets past the third stage, that's when it goes. The FDA approves it. The Federal Drug Administration approves it. So that's the key. And I got into it when it was in its first stage. Then it went to the second, though. I'm like, I'm going to be in the money. I think I got them at a dollar a share, man. Had about 3,000 shares. Let's hold it. They went up to $10 a share, though. And I hung. I'm like, I'm getting ready to be rich. It is delisted. It went all the way down to 50 cents to 7 cents. And it's delisted. It's not even on the market anymore. But that's
But
the
it's funny you
chance.
say that, because Pfizer is actually in the testing phase of a weight loss drug that you take orally, as opposed to the shots like the Ozempic and the Wegovy. It's
Wow.
going to be a while before it hits the market, but that obviously is a promising thing to look forward to, and maybe they'll hit one big.
But the thing is, though, when we're talking about, just investing and return on investment, it's all a risk. There's no guarantees, man. And like I said, if you read that book, Psychology of Money, you'll find out that most people, it's more stocks dud than make it. believe it or not. But it's, really at least getting into stalwarts, and that's why we like to stick with what they call blue chip stocks. Those are the major big corporation um, uh, stocks. Garnett said, "Sorry, Bob, it may make you feel so bad for me, Garnett, because I lost on the Generic stock." But no, let's talk about another investment that poses a 10% return, and that or more, and that's the obvious one: investing in real estate, particularly real estate properties. They can provide a steady income stream through rental payments and potential capital appreciation. See, that's the thing about some investments give you, like stocks, they give you capital appreciation, but like property, real estate, you can actually get income streams from it while the property appreciates. That's obviously the beauty of real estate, and the property and the value over time. But purchasing properties in high demand areas or improving existing properties to increase their values, investors can achieve substantial returns. But as we know, because we've had over 4 properties, and 3 have given us returns, but one we lost on in the economic downturn of 2008. I think we got in 2007, and then it hit, and we could have held it, but where it was, we figured that we might as well take the loss, and I'm glad we did because that market never came back. But real estate is another good return that gives you 10% more. And dope. Let's talk about, because there's always the debate between real estate people, agents, and stockbrokers. Stockbrokers say over time, stocks outperform real estate. Real estate people say over time, real estate. What's your take?
Yeah, depends on what the market's doing. Depends on when you ask, when you look, and what you got and where you got it.
Yeah, yeah. But the name of the game is, once again, diversification. Because if you got both, you're going to make out.
Right. Okay, let me run to the next one. The next one is bonds. And I say that even though we know that a lot of the T-bills right now are paying in the 4 and 5% range. And so how do you get 10% on the bonds? You have to get riskier bonds. And those are sometimes called junk bonds, or they could be high yield corporate bonds. And those are issued by companies that have lower credit ratings. And so your risk is going to be a little higher, but so are your returns. As we always say, higher risk, higher return. And so because of the risk, and there is a chance for default, they have to pay a higher interest rate. And so if you look for high yield corporate bonds, you might be able to get your 10% average. But again, there is some risk involved.
Yeah, and Modestine put in there RITs, real estate investment trusts. Those are they act like index funds and actually mutual funds, because they group real estate together and create almost like a mutual fund. They call RITs, real estate investment trusts. And that's another way, as far as real estate goes, that you can get into the real estate market. Thank you for that, Modestine. And RITs are, they have capital appreciation, they have tax advantages and things like that because it's real estate. But that's another form. And my man Rodney Madison, who's usually on it, he's not on it today. The note experience, holding notes, mortgage notes, is another way in real estate which you can make money. But I want to talk about the next one, though, that's called index funds and ETFs. We've talked about that many times before, but I want to reiterate about them, because investing in index funds and um, ETFs, which is exchange traded funds that track high growth sectors or emerging markets. Emerging markets are those upcoming companies, different than the blue chip companies that's been around for a while. Emerging is up and coming, and they can yield higher returns. While like traditional index funds, and that's why they call them like the S&P 500, they might not always provide a 10% return. But sector specific or market specific funds might offer high potential growth, especially when the markets are going up, like in a bull market, and the conditions are better for those. But that's why we talk about index funds, because they are passively managed and different than actively managed, but they don't give the same return as some of the actively managed by investment fund managers, but they can get you close to 10% returns.
And another thing that can get you 10% returns that I've never uh, dabbled in is option trading, and that's fairly complicated. You have to be on it pretty much like a day trader. And I've got a couple buddies who do it and swear by it and say they make money. And that's when you're buying and selling option contracts, and you can get high returns from that if the underlying asset moves a certain way, or if you're betting against it that it goes down and you buy, you bet that way. But buying call options and I have never done it. I've never found the time to really get educated about it, so I could invest in it. But I know people who do, and that's another way to make 10%. But it would again, it take a education to learn how it works and to be able to do the market analysis to make the right decisions. And these carry extreme risk. These are very risky.
Very volatile, and like you said, though, they really highly involve technical analysis. You know, a lot of charts and stuff. 'Cause I know guys that get into this too. The next one is private credit. Okay, now private credit involves lending directly to companies or individuals outside of traditional banking channels, often through private funds. They actually are private funds that actually do loans, personal loans, and these loans typically offer higher interest rates due to the illiquidity and risk profile. But be careful selecting, because by carefully selecting, borrowers and spreading risk across multiple loans, investors can achieve high returns, and that's how they do it. It's like lending outside of the bank. There are definitely financial institutions that do private credit loans.
Okay, and we touched on this earlier, how diversification can help you reach your 10%. And you diversify as a risk management strategy that encompasses a wide variety of investments. So you have a bunch of different things. And what we're saying is as one thing goes down, something else may go up to offset that. And the fact that you do have some money into a high risk area, like a standard portfolio might be, 30% in value and growth stocks, 30% in index funds, 20% in bonds, 10% in real estate, and 10% in alternative investments like commodities or something like that. And so you have all these different avenues to make money. They all aren't going to move the same way. Some are going to move slower, some are going to move faster. And in the case of stocks, they may move very fast, and you may get a very high return for those. And so that's what diversification does for you. It puts more opportunities out there for you to make money. And on average, you hope to still be around that 10%. And so if you are diversified, something is going to be going well. It's very seldom that everything in the market goes down. So your one investment may be doing 20% while your other investment is doing 5. Something else may be doing 0. Something else may be going down. But if you are adequately diversified, again, you should get back to that average of around 10%, which is what you're looking for. Some things are going to be up, some things are going to be down. If you diversify, you'll be able to offset those and manage your risk.
And it's not like this 10% is a magical number. We just use it as a benchmark, but a 10% return is pretty good. And so a lot of you people who are in 401ks, 403b funds, they give you the return over, a certain period of time in the life of your portfolio, look at that return on your investment. Because if you down below, I know a lot of people though been getting like about 7%, who just invested like 60% um, stocks and 40%, either bonds or money markets. They've been getting over the lifetime of their loan. Like I'm talking about people who've been in like 20, 25 years. They like, man, Bob, all I got was a 7% return. 7% return is good. Matter of fact, that's what you get on Social Security every year, at least an 8% return. So you getting 7%. That's pretty good. But if you can do 10, um, that's a good benchmark to go for, and that's why we're talking about, getting a 10% ROI. So let me just talk like, the bottom line: investing is a financial strategy that can lead to wealth if done correctly, and that's a operative term, right? Done correctly. Nevertheless, it's not a guaranteed path to riches, and requires care, the biggest one, patience, regular reviews, because me and Dope always talk about that, reviewing and adjusting, and, possible look at the adjustments over time. Now by understanding this concept of ROI, identifying potentially lucrative investment options, diversifying your portfolio, and regularly checking your investments, it's possible to unlock your wealth potential, and you can strive for that 10% return on your investment. Now, making use of professional advice can actually help you get to that 10% also, because we always talk about, if you don't know, then ask somebody that does know, especially like a qualified financial advisor. It can be beneficial in you achieving your desired returns over time.
Yeah, and we can't under emphasize how important financial literacy is when it comes to this, because you have to put the time in to make sure you find the right investments that's going to help you meet your goals. And, you know, if you're not going to put the time in, then you can go out and get a financial advisor to help you. But you got to get the expertise from somewhere, because there's so many variables involved in building wealth. And the more you get, the more complicated it becomes, and the more opportunities there are for you to make a mistake that can cost you dearly, whether it's a tax mistake, or not selling something at the right time, or not waiting till something goes long term instead of short term, all those things like that. If you're not going to take the time to learn it for yourself, make sure you got somebody around with you, or you've hired someone to help you navigate through these volatile times, through all the different variables and things that can affect your wealth building goals. Because it's not simple to build wealth, very, very complicated. And we emphasize putting the time in to become financial literate, to understand it. Even if you're going to hire somebody, you need to know the language, so you can make sure they're making the right decisions for you. You have to put the time in. Just take some time away from the all the series and the social media, and put it into building wealth for your future, for your kids, grandkids, and so on.
And once again, the 10%, I think I think it's doable.
Oh
No,
yeah, I've easily done 10% over
yeah,
my career. Yeah,
yeah.
easily.
It just takes, like we said before, it takes, and we say this, and I'm gonna end with this: get the knowledge. There's so many things. That's why I talked about that book. There's so many things out there as far as educational tools that can help you understand a little bit better. Because it's not a rocket scientist, but it just takes a little effort, just like everything in life, right? So please look into ways that you can increase your ROI. So, though, with that, let's go to the summary and takeaway, because as always, we gave a lot of information. We like to recap and make sure that everybody is on the same page. So I'll start it off, though. The first uh, takeaway: know your return on investment. A lot of people just, fly by the seat, but really look at your overall, whether it's a 401k plan, an IRA, alternative investments. Look at the overall return that you're getting, you all, because you want to be at least moving ahead. And if you're not, like we said, review and adjust. You might need to take a little bit more risk. You may need to take a little less risk. But the name of the game is at least understand, and we always talk about this, investing is personal. Know your return on investment.
Yeah, and there are options. There's a bunch of, we went through a bunch of ways that you can get 10%, and you would never choose just one of those. You want to have several because diversification is important. So there's a bunch of different options you can take to get that 10% return. You just have to put the time in to pick the right ones.
Once again, maximize your return. That's the name of the game. You want to, if you can maximize return, you need to take the opportunity because you want to make sure it matches your goals, your time horizon, and your risk tolerance. And once you do that, but maximizing return also calls for not being greedy. Don't I've seen people do that when the market was rolling the last 10 years, it was going up and up, and then people were just taking more and more risks, instead of just trying to rebalance, and sometimes they call it hubris. We get too anxious and we get too greedy. So, but always look to maximize your return.
And finally, there are no guarantees. There's no magic bullet. There's no magic beans. You got to put the time in, effort in. You can do everything right, and the market can still go down, and you can lose money. You have to be aware of that. The market is always going up more than it's going down, but that's no guarantee of what's going to happen in the future. So there are no guarantees, but control what you can control, invest constantly and consistently, diversify, review and adjust, and more often than not, you'll end up better off than you were before.
That's the God's honest truth, though. So with that, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, as you always do, around the country and around the world. We do our roll call. Thank you, Modestine from Lexington. I want to say Kentucky. I don't know why I always want to say Kentucky. Lexington, South Kakalaki, South Carolina. My sister Linda, good evening. Linda, good evening. Nolia. Garnet Nickens, how you doing, dearest? Glad you're tuning in. A lot of people think on vacation these days, but we like to thank everybody who stayed with us. My quote of the day, though, is: the circumstances of your life do not describe and cannot constrain the greatness of your soul. With that, bam, I dropped the mic. Have a wonderful week. We see you, Dope. Hey, Dope. Dope, by the way, before we go, how was Martha's Vineyard?
It was okay. It was my daughter's birthday up there. So
How old was your which daughter was it?
my baby girl is 32.
Oh, whoa. Taylor is 32 now?
Yeah, you were just taking her a chicken dinner at Georgetown a couple years ago.
I know, man. Well, we were in St. Kitts and it was fabulous, and Melody is getting ready to be 21 in September. They grow fast, though.
Goes fast, man.
They grow fast. But thank you all for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next week, next back channel, same back place. And may peace be with you all. Have a wonderful week. Oh, good night. Don't forget to say hey now. Have a good one, y'all.